Ever heard of a hero so legendary that even after his death, his body was strapped to his horse to lead his troops into one last battle? Today, we are diving deep into the life of one of history's most fascinating figures, Rodrigo de Vivar, better known as the Cid Campeador. Was he a loyal Christian knight, a ruthless mercenary, or something in between? Let's unravel the man behind the myth. Our story begins in mid-11th century Spain, a land of shifting alliances and constant conflict between Christian kingdoms in the north and Moorish taifas in the south. This was the era of the Reconquista, the centuries-long struggle to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula into this world. Around the year 1043, Rodrigo was born into a minor noble family in Vivar, a small town near Burgos, the capital of the Kingdom of Castile. From a young age, Rodrigo was groomed for a life of warfare. He was raised in the court of Prince Sancho, the eldest son of King Ferdinand I. There he learned the arts of combat, strategy, and court politics. When Sancho became King Sancho II of Castile, Rodrigo rose to become his commander-in-chief, his standard-bearer. He quickly earned a reputation for his bravery and skill in battle, earning the title Campeador, which means the champion or master of the battlefield. But Sancho's reign was short-lived. In 1072, he was assassinated while besieging his sister's city of Zamora. His brother, Alfonso VI, who had been ruling the neighboring kingdom of Leon, ascended to the Castilian throne. This was a turning point for Rodrigo. The court was rife with suspicion that Alfonso had a hand in Sancho's death. According to legend, Cid famously forced Alfonso to swear an oath on the Bible in front of the nobles of Castile that he was innocent. This act, whether it happened exactly as the epic poems say or not, created a deep rift between the new king and his most powerful warrior. It was an audacious move that Alfonso would never forget or forgive. Despite this tension, Alfonso recognized Rodrigo's military genius and kept him in his service, at least for a while. It was during this period that Rodrigo was given the name El Cid by the Moors he fought both with and against. It comes from the Arabic al-Sayyid, meaning the Lord. It's a testament to the respect he commanded even from his enemies. However, his success and independent nature continued to stir jealousy among the other nobles at court. They whispered in the king's ear, painting El Cid as arrogant and disloyal, accusing him of skimming tribute money from the Moorish taifas. Finally, in 1081, after an unauthorized raid into the Moorish kingdom of Toledo, which was under King Alfonso's protection, the king had his chance. He exiled El Cid from Castile. Stripped of his lands, his titles, and his home, Rodrigo became a mercenary, a sword for hire. But this wasn't the end of his story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. Exiled and leading a small band of loyal followers, El Cid had to survive. He offered his services to the Christian rulers of Barcelona, but they turned him down. So he did the unthinkable for a Christian champion of the Reconquista. He went to work for the enemy. He entered the service of the Moorish ruler of the Taifa of Zaragoza, Al-Mutamin, and later his son, Al-Mustan II. For nearly a decade, El Cid fought for his Muslim employers against their enemies, who were often other Muslims, but also the Christian armies of Aragon and even his former king, Alfonso. This period is what makes El Cid such a complex figure. He wasn't just a symbol of Christian resistance. He was a pragmatist, a military professional, who fought for whoever paid him and respected his abilities, and he was incredibly successful. He perfected his tactics, blending Christian and Moorish fighting styles. His tactical genius lay in his use of psychological warfare, surprise attacks, and lightning-fast cavalry charges. He understood the terrain, the politics, and the people he fought with and against. He never lost a battle during his time in Zaragoza, even capturing the powerful Christian Count of Barcelona not once but twice, while Cid was making a name for himself in the east. A new threat emerged from the south. The Almoravids, a fundamentalist Islamic dynasty from North Africa, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. They were called in by some of the Taifa kings to help push back the Christian advance. The Almoravids were a formidable force, and in 1086 they dealt a crushing blow to King Alfonso VI at the Battle of Sagrillas. Suddenly, Alfonso was desperate. The man he had exiled was now the only one who seemed capable of standing up to this new enemy. Swallowing his pride, Alfonso recalled Cid from exile. The reconciliation was brief. The old distrust lingered. After a failed siege where Cid's forces failed to rendezvous with the kings, possibly due to miscommunication or deliberate sabotage by his rivals, Alfonso exiled him for a second and final time in 1089. Now Cid was truly on his own. He was no longer a Castilian knight or a mercenary in the employ of a king. He was a warlord carving out his own destiny. He set his sights on the rich and powerful coastal city of Valencia. The conquest of Valencia was Cid's masterpiece. It wasn't a single battle, but a long, grueling campaign that lasted several years. He didn't just lay siege to the city. He systematically conquered the surrounding towns and farmlands, cutting off Valencia's supply lines and isolating it completely. He used diplomacy, intimidation, and brutal warfare. He forged and broke alliances, playing the various local factions against each other with masterful skill. Inside the city, the people were starving. Finally, in June of 1094, Valencia surrendered. Cid, the exiled knight from Vivar, was now the ruler of his own principality. As the Prince of Valencia, Cid ruled with a unique blend of fairness and absolute authority. He governed a diverse population of Christians and Muslims. While he established a Christian bishopric, he allowed the Muslims to keep their property, practice their religion, and be judged by their own laws, as long as they paid their taxes. It was a remarkably tolerant and practical approach for the time. He created a stable and prosperous state, a buffer zone between the Almoravids in the south and the Christian kingdoms in the north. Of course, the Almoravids were not going to let this stand. They sent a massive army to retake Valencia. In the Battle of Cuarte in 1094, just outside the city, Cid achieved his most famous victory. Hopelessly outnumbered, he didn't wait to be besieged. Instead, he led a surprise sortie, smashing into the Almoravid camp and routing their much larger army. It was a stunning display of tactical brilliance and sheer audacity. He had secured his kingdom. Cid ruled Valencia for 5 years, a legend in his own lifetime, but his time was running out. In 1099, while the First Crusade was capturing Jerusalem far to the east, Cid died, likely from illness or grief over a recent defeat suffered by his forces. His death created a crisis. His wife, the formidable Jimena Diaz, took command and held Valencia against the Almoravids for another 3 years, an incredible feat in its own right. Eventually, however, the pressure became too great. With no hope of reinforcement from King Alfonso, Jimena decided to abandon the city in 1102, and this is where we get the most enduring legend of Cid. As the Castilian army and the citizens of Valencia evacuated, they couldn't just leave their hero's body behind. So they dressed him in his armor, placed his famous sword Tizona in his hand, and strapped him upright onto his war-horse Babica. They placed him at the head of the army as it rode out of the city gates. The advancing Almoravids, seeing the fearsome figure of El Cid seemingly leading another charge, were said to have been so terrified that they broke ranks and fled, allowing the evacuation to proceed safely. So, who was the real El Cid? He was a devoted family man, a loyal vassal betrayed by his king, a brilliant strategist, a ruthless warlord, and a surprisingly tolerant ruler. He was a product of his time, a complex individual who navigated a violent and chaotic world with unparalleled skill and ambition. The myths that grew around him, immortalized in Spain's great epic poem El Cantar de Mio Cid, simplified him into a perfect Christian knight, but the reality is far more interesting. He was a man who was exiled by a Christian king and became a champion for a Muslim one, a hero who conquered a great city for himself, and a legend whose very corpse could win one last battle. His story is a powerful reminder that history is rarely black and white, and its greatest figures are often painted in shades of gray. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. What other historical figures should we cover? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.